Now, obviously, they take stuff out, but Netflix does the same thing, and they're fine.
And for me, like, and I don't know if anybody here has ever had it, but like, and this might be showing my age. Game Pass to me is just like the evolution of the Sega Channel back in the day,
Yep.
where it's like the exact same concept. The thing that the Sega Channel did was they would actually put out game demos as they were working on them. I remember that's where I first got to play Comic Zone. Now, we couldn't afford the Sega Channel back in the day. I had to go over to my friend's house, but it was still just this like, what do you mean I don't have to go to Blockbuster and rent my games? And so for me, like, I always just like, I have this mindset that this is just my video game rental service. This is just
Yeah.
how I get to have access and try games. Expedition 33 came out, I played it through Game Pass, absolutely loved it, and decided to buy it because I was like, regardless if this ever leaves Game Pass, I want to A, support the devs, but B, this was great. I really love that barrier to try because we don't have the blockbusters anymore. We don't have the ways that you can go out and just rent and try a game out. And I've seen the internet advocate for, and maybe this would be something that people could get behind, is that make video game demos kind of a regular thing again. But I think Game Pass ends up acting as that because you get a real slice of the game, not a curated vertical slice of it.
I want to say Microsoft attempted the game demo, like kind of not really requirement, but if I remember right, the Xbox Live Arcade games all had a
Yes,
demo,
that's
and
correct. Yeah.
that was like a requirement of getting the arcade banner. Was like you had it was just a quick demo of like the first like little bit, and then if you bought the game, that it just converted to the full release. You know, yeah, I think that I wouldn't mind a demo service. If they were going to do that, but I think demos put a lot of strain on tight developer schedules anyway.
Mhm.
So, do I want that? It would be nice to get to try stuff, kind of as it comes out. But I think that's where early access or public betas come into play.
Also with streamers and like the whole game around reviews, etc., I think has changed completely. I see there are plenty of
Mhm.
people who are like, oh, I go to reviews to decide where I want to buy a game. I think those people are in the minority. I think the vast majority of people will hop over on Twitch, see whoever's playing whatever game, hang out on the stream long enough to then make a decision whether they want to purchase the game or not. And it's like we've seen that happen a lot within an MMO. It's like where it's like, yeah, we're not going to add that feature because the community kind of handles it. Like WoW is
Yeah.
specifically egregious at that with their add-ons to the point where now they're starting to bring those more in house. Actually, let's take a pivot real quick because I'd love to just get Jess's thoughts on this because we talked about Game Pass and I know you're a big WoW guy. World of Warcraft, Game Pass, console, is that ever going to happen in your worldview?
I think the problem with Warcraft in Game Pass, right, is that Warcraft's entire business model is a subscription.
Mhm.
So like you end up sort of you end up charging back Game Pass a lot probably for that operation, right? I think there's a lot of overlap with Game Pass and World of Warcraft, as in people subscribe to both.
Mhm.
I know I do. So I think putting Warcraft into Game Pass really disrupts that business model, and I personally don't think they'll do it because of that. But will it come to Xbox? One thing I do know is that there was a small team, I don't know how big that is. I was told small. That was what I was told. There was a small team exploring the logistics of what it would take to bring WoW to console. And they have been doing a lot of things to make WoW more controller friendly because
Mhm.
there is an add-on called Console Port, which lets you play WoW on a Steam Deck with a controller.
Mhm.
Now, that's fine for some classes like DPS classes and stuff like that, but for healing classes, the whole healing of the players, you have to click on their names. So like how do you do that with a controller? Like it's hard for me to imagine how I'd be able to heal someone or heal a raid of 20 people with a controller, right? The way Final Fantasy does it is it splits the raid into teams of 4 or 5 players, I think. But like WoW raids are designed around healing the whole raid, right? But they have been doing a lot of things to optimize their UI for controllers because of the rise of Steam Deck for World of
Mhm.
Warcraft. And
Mhm.
I think like they are increasingly thinking about like this is a way for us to grow because World of Warcraft obviously you can run it on a potato, right? It's a great game for these kind of handhelds because it'll run really, really well.
Mhm.
So they have to be thinking about console to grow their user base. So if I was a betting man, and I'm not, But if I was, well, I bet sometimes on the horses. But if I was a
Ponies.
better man, yeah, I would bet that it does come to console eventually. Whether that's support or via the Xbox's new PC hybridization they're
OS.
going for next gen,
Yeah.
I don't know. But I would think that if you are sort of making World of Warcraft more compatible with the controller for that Xbox, the hybrid Xbox, you would think you'd want it on PlayStation as well, right? So
Oh, yeah.
maybe the plays will just do a straight port of it. I think it happens. Maybe in the next 2 or 3 years, I can see it happening. I could see it being announced at BlizzCon next year, maybe. But like that would be the most optimistic prediction. Maybe they just say we're working on it, and then it'll come eventually. But I do think it'll come. I really do. Just makes sense.
I honestly, I hope so. Now, I would say like what I would be rooting for is, I get you don't want to cannibalize the WoW subscription, but it'd be interesting, just like how Final Fantasy 14 kind of has a free trial that lets you play up to a certain point. Like it'd be interesting if they ever did that. It's like, yeah, it's in game. This part of the game's in Game Pass, and if you want to be subscribed, you then have access to this expansion and this expansion. So it's like in a way a two-tiered system. But that subscription is one reason why I'm not checking out Classic right now. I'm not active. But I would absolutely put that into kind of rotation, check in on that from time to time with that barrier. And obviously, like same concept with 14. It's like I think the subscription for the direct players makes sense on the current content, maybe even the previous content. But at some point, especially with WoW's 20-year history, there's a bunch of content in there that it's like people haven't played, and that subscription is keeping them from that. And maybe one day Game Pass could actually act as that kind of, barrier, dissolvent a little bit. I don't know. What do you think?
It's kind of weird because WoW is 20 years old. It does have 20 years of content, but you don't play any of that content.
Mhm.
Like a lot of those expansions take place in continents or even on other planets, which you just don't go to. So the way the game works now is like you level up to a certain point and then you go straight to the latest expansion. You skip everything, right? Because they want you in the end game, really.
Yeah.
And like there's a new content patch for WoW coming out soon, and it is so big. It's absolutely massive, and it's free with the subscription.
Mhm.
And I think players have come to expect that level of just volume from their content patches now. That I do wonder, like disrupting the business model or giving more away, does that hurt things?
Possible.
Because you have to think like
Yeah.
if you're making WoW free to access, you're increasing your server costs.